Now coming to today's articles, there are very good, interesting articles. So our 2-minute rule should apply to this article as well. So Chinmaya Garekan, he's mentioning that India's decision to not engage with Taliban is a very flawed decision. We should have discussed with Taliban, or we should have engaged with Taliban. Now, my simple question to most of you is this: how can you engage without endorsing? If you have engaging, means someone is legitimizing their role. Now, engaging means in just talking. I'm just talking to someone, right? Endorsing means I am legitimizing them. I am recognizing them as someone. But the moment USA has done this, this is what exactly happened. The moment USA decided to bypass Afghanistan government and directly engage with Taliban, okay, they are just engaging, right? By going by the same logic. It more or less gave the legitimacy to the Taliban. Okay, Taliban is an actor which we have to discuss. But before this happened also, we know that majority of the Afghanistan was covered by Taliban. Only few parts were controlled by Afghanistan government. We knew that. But because of this, legitimacy has increased. They started demanding, release our fighters. Okay. So all such negotiation, bargaining chips came from what? By this, right? Instead of using Afghanistan government as a shield to engage, USA in its hurry to escape, it has legitimized Taliban in a way, right? And within the same article, there is one more contradiction. So he's saying if again, see, again, that's a argument that is very legitimate. But what is the biggest flaw with that particular argument? So you are saying talk to Taliban only for Indian citizens. What is the long-term fallout of that particular argument? As of now, there is no Afghanistan government, right? Now, what is the problem of talking to Taliban? That we want our Indian citizens to be safe. We are accepting the Taliban has control, and when they carry out terrorist operation, government will then blame the indulging. Yes, that is one legitimate concern. Very good articulation, Sumant. Apart from that, the second biggest problem is you are literally saying we don't care about, the human rights of Afghanistan or whatever happens in Afghanistan. By legitimizing them, we are taking care of our own. Okay, so the moral high ground right now we have by not engaging with the Taliban, right, is lost. So that's a long-term damage. You must have seen a foreign, an Afghanistan cabinet member or someone. She was deported from Delhi airport, and Indian government regretted that. So that is loss of moral authority. So here, not only we have to safeguard our interests, and we are also safeguarding our moral authority, right? So those two are the major concerns. Yes. Again, see, we have to respect Indian Foreign Service, right? Jaishankar is a career diplomat. He has spent around 35 years is in lifetime, entirely only in dealing with foreign affairs. Yes. Shiv Shankar Menon, right? Ajit Doval. All these people have spent their entire lifetime in the field. We are all more or less academicians. Yes. Except for Vivek Kaju, I haven't seen a single foreigner, single Indian ambassador actually endorsing the negotiation with Taliban, right? So there must be some logic within the government. We as a common citizen, we may not know it, but I definitely understand it's one moral pressure. Then, as Sumant has raised at the point, if government does engage with Taliban, if something bad happens, like a terror attack or something like that, yes, again it will come back to bite the government. So it's a lose-lose scenario for the government of India. And second thing, what do we have to lose at the ground level? In Afghanistan, we don't have any investment. $3 billion is not a big deal. But once we lose the support of Afghanistan people by endorsing Taliban, that is 10 times more costly than whatever we are paying right now. Yes. So think in a longer term. And again, as an aspirant, you will write only what government is doing, right? You cannot write your own opinion. You can criticize what government has done. Yes. In the same way, as he supports, government has withdrawn all the citizens, ambassadors, diplomats, attaché officers, everyone. If at least one person was killed in the entire Taliban debacle, don't you think the entire media would have blamed the Modi government for not taking care of its own staff? Yes. When we do something, we will be blamed. When we don't do something, we will be blamed. So anyhow, you will be blamed. Then why not do it and get blamed? So that is the approach we are taking. Next. So as time progresses, your PSIR knowledge will increase, your international relation understanding will increase. You will definitely appreciate the articles more and more. Yes. Now, rape and insensitivity. I hope some of you have read this particular article. So my simple question is this: should rapists be hanged? Mm-hmm. Okay. After thorough investigation, if one is proved guilty, okay. So that is the basic, right? Mm. Right. So what about rest of you? You don't have an opinion. You don't have to be a UPS aspirant, right? It's pure something you see in the society. Okay. Anyone else? The guilty are to be hanged and the steps to be taken. We need to start the change from the roots that making a person to rape. Mm-hmm. So most of you are in favor to get. Mm. Whatever be the reason for doing rape, punishment should be severe. Okay. Right. Very good. So more or less, there is a consensus that majority of you are favoring hanging the rapists. Good. Now, let me try and persuade you other ways, or make you think in different perspectives. First of all, rape is a crime of passion most of the times, right? That means it's not pre-planned. It's not, you know, that you actually plan and do. So what we call as cold-blooded crimes, right? And there is empirical data throughout the world, not only in India, which has proved that no amount of punishment, no amount of capital punishment, or no amount of any kind of punishment has anywhere actually acted as a deterrent for rape. That means rape cases only increased, but they did not decrease. Point number two. By adding capital punishment, that means earlier a victim was raped, okay, now she is also murdered, because if she is left alone, or if she identifies the culprit, right, the culprit will get capital punishment. So by adding capital punishment to the rape crime, okay, you are actually encouraging the criminal to not only commit rape, you are also doing rape and murder, right? So that is a very sad state of affairs, and all of this is empirical throughout the world, not only in India, South Africa, USA, anywhere. Even the most developed countries will have the most heinous crime called as rape, because it's a crime of passion, either under the usage of alcohol, drugs, or social upbringing. Okay, it happens, and there is no cure apart from educating the entire society. It takes a village to raise a child, right? So that means there is severe problem with the society, not with the person who is committing the rape. If a rape is happening every 16 minutes in this particular country, then something should tell you that the society is not raising its sons properly, right? It's nowhere the case of daughters. Why? It's very evident. A 3-year-old has been raped, okay, a 80-year-old has been raped. So what is their crime? Nothing. So this argument that that girls are wearing jeans, they are going to parties, they are consuming alcohol, all this is nonsense. Because what did this 3-year-old do? Nothing. What did this 80-year-old do? Nothing. So it's a problem with the entire society. It's a problem with the mindset. So that is why most of the times it is argued patriarchy is deeply rooted. Patriarchy is the reason why men have no sense of rejection. They don't understand the concept of consent. Yes. And even sex is considered as a taboo topic in the society. Parents don't talk with their sons. Right now, if you see that particular editorial, the university prohibited timings of the women. You cannot go beyond 7:30, 8:30. The hostel will be closed after 9 p.m. Right? So I mean, people don't discuss all these topics, but whenever there is a news like Nirbhaya case, Priyanka Reddy case, this present Mysore incident, okay, if the fathers are taking their sons and talking to them, right, then a lot of problems will be solved in this country. But the thing is, there is something called as patriarchy. It's so deeply rooted that we don't know that we are actually under the influence of patriarchy. See, I am nowhere justifying that the crime they are doing is, it's not their crime. Going by the same thing, every son should be doing that. But still, I'm saying the root cause is society. The first villain is society. The outcomes are spoiled brats, right? And the girl has nothing to do whatsoever with this particular thing. And third thing is, there are definitely misuse of cases. For example, a 19-year-old boy and a 8-year-old girl has eloped. Okay, they have consensual sex. But the thing is, once the parents find out they have eloped and got married, the girl's parent will go to the police station and file a rape case. So that is also a problem, because parents don't have the parents don't respect such kind of eloping and relationships. So these are all real problems of the society. So when such heinous crimes are happening, there is also one caste angle, right? Domination. Rape is used as a weapon. You see Ethiopia right now, in Ethiopia, Syria, probably Taliban in Afghanistan, rape is always used as a weapon against the society. Yes. So it's something historical. That means time and again, this has been used as a tool against oppressing a particular society, especially women. So that is where dignity of women, honor killings, and all these things come into the picture. Right? So I want to project my dominance over you or your community. This is a very powerful weapon. Hathras rape case is a very, very good example. If you have followed that news in Uttar Pradesh, not less than 1.5 years ago, right? So now again, coming to this, what I'm trying to tell you is, we can definitely punish them, we can definitely hang them, but data proves that it is not going to reduce any part. Second thing, justice denied is justice justice delayed is justice denied. There is no argument about this. At the particularly same time, are you actually addressing the root cause of the problem? Justice is always about reformation, not revenge. It's retributive justice. That means justice is trying to reform a society, not that particular individual alone. By showing him as an example, are you changing 1,000 kids in the society? Yes, I was there in Delhi when it happened, 2012, 13, the Nirbhaya rape case. It shook the entire country's consciousness. Yes. So from that day onwards, I'm still reading newspaper. I can tell you, we come to an apathy state. That means when we see a rape case or something in the newspaper, we just move on unless and until it's sensationalized. Okay, one more rape happened. We don't even stop. We don't even think. We don't even address. Right? Patriarchy. So some of your friends might be there. Yes, one of your friend might be making a lewd comment about a woman. Okay, we don't stop it. We don't stop them, or we don't say anything. Let's say one of your family members or relatives make a statement derogatory to women or promotes patriarchy. We don't stop that. We don't say it's patriarchy, because patriarchy is deeply mixed with culture, society, value system, family system, upbringing, social conditioning. So first of all, you don't even know that you are going through the patriarchal cycle, right? So once you understand all these things, you will be in a much better position to discuss about the rape issue. So that is what I told you, right? No issue is as simple as black and white, yes or no. Okay, there is no doubt he should be punished, but at the same time, the ultimate purpose of punishment should be he should act as a signal post that 1,000 others should change. Only then the justice is winning. Or else you are killing people on the one side, then rapes are happening on the right hand side. Nothing has changed. Society is status quo. What changed? Tell me honestly, after 2012 Nirbhaya rape case till today, that is 2021, what changed in India? The capital punishment was brought in 2013, Criminal Law Amendment Act. Right? So think about all these things. So do more analysis. It will make more and more sense. So any questions on this particular topic? You may not agree with me. You must be a product of your own society. Or you can also say reporting of cases increased because confidence in women has increased. Yes, our system is made easy to report cases. For example, 0 FIR cases can be registered. That means you can go to any police station in a state and file a case. You don't have to go to only that particular thing. So probably administrative reforms. Yes, confidence of women, or people are no longer burying the rape cases. For example, earlier, hypothetically speaking, a lower caste person has been raped by an upper caste person, right? Then they used to bury this issue. The panchayatis used to do this. There are enough Telugu movies which says that rapist should marry the victim, and it's the best judgment that the panchayati will give, right? Allowing, so such kind of things are going away. So that is why cases are coming out. So it's a good point to think. That is the worst kind of judgment, right? Allowing the victim to stay for the rest of her life with the perpetrator. Again, what was I saying? Yes, that is where Supreme Court came down on the lower courts very heavily. They told you stop doing all this drama, behave like constitutional bodies. So recently Supreme Court came down very highly on the lower courts. Don't give such patriarchal judgments. Yes. So what I was trying to remind you is this. See, we are deeply patriarchal. You may not agree with me. You can bring 10,000 arguments to fight that. But Indian society is patriarchal. So that's final. I'm not generalizing. I'm saying majority. And we don't do it willingly. We do it subconsciously. I will tell you a very simple example. Whenever functions happen in our homes, okay, the first set of people will be male. Once all the men have eaten food, okay, then the others will eat, right? You can argue like convenience issues, other issues, and so on and so forth. You can also argue that has changed. Right now everybody is eating together thanks to Swiggy parcels, right? So I agree, all these things are also changing. It's not universal. It does not apply to each and every family. Your family, there are better families all the time, but the thing is, that is one form of patriarchy, right? Yes. So shall we move on to the next topic? There is much deeper societal issue right here rather than judiciary. Society has to change itself for all these issues to stop. Now, a very, very interesting article. This article is about indemnity clause and long-term reform. So what is the summary of this particular article? Never waste a good crisis. So that is the summary, right? As mentioned by Winston Churchill, never let a good crisis go waste. India was not ready for COVID pandemic. Majority of the world was not ready for COVID pandemic, probably except for South Korea. There is no other country in the planet which can claim that we were actually ready for COVID pandemic. Yes. So COVID gave a lot of structural shocks. The term is structural shock. Why structural shock? We came to realize how weak our healthcare system was, how weak our oxygen delivery system was, how weak our medical supply chain was, right? So we came to realize how interdependent we are. A lot of things have been understood. It also gave rise to opportunities like e-commerce and online transactions. Yes, UPI platform has increased exponentially. So COVID gave us a lot of reality check. In the same way, COVID is also giving us a reality check that our vaccine policy is not up to the mark, right? It has been time and again proved that new vaccines will always have some kind of side effects. Even with the COVID vaccines, we don't know all the side effects. So that is a big problem. So what do vaccines do? Sometimes vaccines kill people. Sometimes they will give adverse reactions. Sometimes they will give you a lot of unwanted new diseases or new problems in your life. So all such things are called as adverse event following immunization program or immunization. So This is what the vaccine companies want protection from. That means if you have taken a X vaccine and if something happens to you, right, the company is liable to pay you certain amount of money. Without this clause, India is not willing to allow the foreign vaccines to come into the country. Foreign vaccines don't want to come into the country with this clause. So it's like, unstoppable force meeting the immovable object. India is saying we need this to come in. They say with remove this, we will come in. So it's like a traffic jam. So what should India do? So that is where the entire discussion of this particular article is running towards. Now, you can understand that companies are very careful because it might run into billions of dollars. So God forbid, like all the vaccines right now are very good. They don't have any long-term problems for the world. But if in future also, if some of these vaccines show long-term adverse reactions, then they will be liable to pay. Right? So that's one issue that the companies are thinking about. Next, one more program you need to understand is COVAX. Whatever happened. The next pandemic in the world will not have this same problem. I will tell you why in a minute. Right? That means a company, let's say P company has created the vaccine. Right now, what is happening? India, USA, European Union, Australia, or Canada, these countries are purchasing the vaccine individually from that particular country. Yes. So whosoever gives the largest amount of money, they are able to get more vaccines. The other people are having some kind of issues. India is producing its own vaccines. So we are also safe. Right? So this is a problem. This creates a wedge between developed and developing countries. And let's think about it. These are developed countries. This is developing country. What about the poor nations? Bangladesh, African nations. Yes, small island nations. They don't have many. They don't have the pharmaceutical capacity like India to produce their own vaccines. So they are not even in the race. Let's say Canada have 8 times more vaccines than it needed, whereas African nations don't even have a single dose. If you see our own immediate neighbor, Bhutan was heavily dependent on India. It got the first vaccine, right? Second dose, India could not provide because it was having its own problems. So who will solve all these problems? That is where this COVAX global coalition will come into the Gavi, GAVI. So this coalition will come into the picture. That means in the future pandemics, what will happen is UN body will have a global coalition, right? The funds will be given by all the countries that can give funds, and this will distribute vaccines on equitable proportions. That means no single country will be given priority. This global coalition will distribute vaccines in a equal proportions, and because everybody is pooling their money, their research and their capacities, vaccines will roll out in a much faster way, and production will also be increased exponentially. That means this global coalition will give permission to Serum Institute India, some other company in USA, some company in Israel, some company in China. So license is given to all these things. So they don't have to do research individually. Collective research, distribution, right? Everybody is a winner. So that is how global future vaccination distribution will work. Now coming back to this particular article, right now the problem or the suggestions mentioned in this particular article are India should create mechanisms where not only through this indemnity clause, other like going to consumer courts should be an option. Going to high courts should be an option. Clear? But the major theme you are supposed to learn in this particular article is what is indemnity clause. Unless you are willing to sign an agreement saying if something happens after taking my vaccine, I will pay, you are not allowed. So that mechanism has to change. so that flow of vaccines will increase. At the same time, by allowing consumer courts, high courts, or class action lawsuits, you are allowing more vaccines to come into India, and the vaccination dose will increase. That is his entire argument, right? Only 11% of Indians are vaccinated, and only 36% got first dose. This will increase if more and more vaccines are available. As an educated citizen, if you have an option, you will go for a choice. Right? I hope you are able to understand some of it, at least, if not fully. Did you understand this article in the same lines or in any other perspective? I would like to hear perspectives. I will tell you one more thing. Just understand, this is especially for the mute spectators. Right? No, actually, that is not the case, Sumant. Because if I mean, it will be a very disastrous precedent. That means, in the sense, if you allow vaccines without indemnity bond, adverse reactions might come out 6 times or 6 months down the line, and because of different genetic compositions, DNA compositions, we are different from Americans. What might be safe for Americans might be totally hazardous to Indians, or vice versa, and that might only come 6 months down the line. So he was very clear in saying high courts, consumer courts, class action lawsuits, right, institution mechanisms, all these things will act as an alternative to indemnity bond. This versus this. So you are only stuck with this. As of now, India is having only this option, indemnity bond. So why not give more options so that you will also feel more confident to allow the vaccines? So that is what he's saying. Right? So yeah. Now, my intention in saying the perspective is this. It will create a vaccines only testing state. See, again, that is not the true case, because we have allowed COVAX, Covishield, and all these things only in the secondary trial itself. So we allowed most of the vaccines in India at this stage. Yes, the experimental stage. And before this results even came, Pfizer was already active in USA. That means American citizens were already taking the Pfizer vaccine before we even announced the Covishield Covaxin. Yes, so true. And the cost is even higher, right? What Sumant is saying is, if you allow vaccines, the courts might take a lot of time, right? Can't the consumer code be approached? That is what Sumant is saying. That is what Pandora's box is. That means I have to prove with fact that I did not face any adverse reaction because of that particular vaccine, and that is next to impossible to prove unless the reaction is immediate, right? There are all these problems also. So all good observations. If you are not following what I'm discussing, people are commenting in the comments section. There is something called as chat box, CHAT chat box. People are typing there. So if you can read them, that will improve your perspective. Right. Now, why perspective is very important? I was coming back to that particular point. In essay, you have to write 1200 words on one single topic. Okay, like that in 3 hours, you have to write 2400 words back to back. That is around 20 pages. In GS, morning 3 hours, afternoon 3 hours, morning 3 hours, afternoon 3 hours. Okay, you have to write for 20 questions. That is 250 words on 20 questions. That means 20 different topics. Sometimes questions will also have sub topics as well. Now, just think about it. If you are not developing perspectives, if you are just going by the surface, you didn't think, right? There is something called as rape issue. He should be hanged. Yes, that's one line, but the examiner is asking you 150 words or 250 words. He is an animal. Okay, he is a villain. He should be hanged. 10 lines. Still you have to fill 140 words or like 200 words, and none of these are valid. Examiner is not going to give words for marks for hang them. They are animals. They should be killed on the roads. These are all good for TV debates and newspaper articles, but not for UPSC level exam. But if you put side headings like the policy reforms, society reforms, administrative reforms, three points, examiner will know that you not only look at that particular issue from not just binary point of view, but you are looking it from multiple point of views, and all of them are coherent, all of them are not contradicting with each other, and they are very logical. Yes, in society reforms you can talk, you can bring in ethics, right? Panchatantra stories from Mahabharata, Ramayana. That is societal reform. Raise your children with all these stories again. These stories have to be so deeply ingrained that society will become ethical again. Right? So unless you write like this, or unless you think like this for all the 82 topics, instantly within 6 minutes or 7 minutes, you are going to fall behind. And one day you woke up suddenly, you will be able to do all these things. That can never happen. You have to do it from day one. Day one of your preparation will accumulate in day 365. Sir, on 364th day, when I clear prelims, then I will see. You will not see anything. Right? So develop perspectives from now onwards. If I ask you a question, even if you don't answer, at least use your brain. Keep that mobile aside, keep the chatting aside for 1 hour. You can at least focus for 1 hour, right? Think deeply. Okay, what are the things that sir is saying? Okay, is it really true in the society? Have I seen patriarchy? What is patriarchy? Take a white paper and note down the keywords that I mentioned in the class. Even Wikipedia reading will still give you a lot of knowledge. Develop perspectives like this, and when they become part and parcel of your entire personality, that is when you write very, very good answers. Yes, the same is true. So what Sumant was mentioning was very true. That was the first thought even I got. Like if I go to high court, then there will be a lot of false cases also. There is a lot of poverty in the country. If someone took a vaccine within 2 days, he died, that family will be greedy or that family will be desperate. They will go to high court saying that I have taken the vaccine, he died, so we want 10 lakh rupee compensation. Sometimes it may be able to prove that it is a good case. Sometimes it may not be a good case. It will lead to legal litigation, lot of headaches. So that is why government is blocking everything from the first step itself, that no indemnity, no entry. So government has its own reasons. So you are thinking from government point of view, high court point of view, victim family point of view, overall society's access to vaccine point of view. In this dilemma whether to allow vaccine or not allow vaccine, let's say 10,000 citizens have died because of lack of access to vaccine. Whom to blame? Did we protect 1.4 billion or did we kill 10,000? So that's perspective development, that's thinking, right? So newspaper will give you unparalleled access to develop your thinking. You can take any current affairs material, you will never develop analysis like this, right? I hope you are able to understand. And I don't want to spoon feed you, right? What did I tell you in the first class? 3 to 6 months down the line, you should be totally able to think like this on your own. You should not be dependent on anyone, and you will write fantastic answers. That is the ultimate objective of reading newspapers or UPSC preparation, to write answers in the mains hall. Do you agree? Right? A very fine line. So what is this fine line article about? Should we grow as a nation by spending more or creating more electricity by constructing more dams, or should we respect environment, forests, wildlife? Which should be prioritized? If I construct a hydropower dam, it will lead to cultivation, it will lead to power generation. Yes, it will lead to industrialization, probably. On the left hand side, by constructing hydro dam, I am destroying the ecosystem. Natural disasters have increased. Yes, and cost of capital. If you have seen news recently, in Chamoli, 200 people lost their life and an avalanche happened. The entire dam, except the pillars, everything else was swept off. That is the power of Mother Nature, right? So was that worth it? All the money invested is gone, human loss, right? So is it very wise to create hydropower plants in a ecologically very fragile area? It has high seismic zone. That means it is very prone to earthquakes, landslips, landslides will also increase. Unplanned development will happen. So how do we draw this line? How do we come to a conclusion that what is best course of action? Yes. You'll be surprised by the number of questions you can actually answer by reading newspapers. Now, so I will reframe this article from a mains perspective point of view. Right. First of all, we have to understand that natural disaster or loss of human life cannot be replaced with anything. Human life is invaluable. 1,000 crores, I don't know. 10 crores, I don't know. How can you measure someone's life? Right? At the same time, we cannot go for development. The problem that is happening right now is top to bottom approach. That means somebody at the center or union level or state or any higher levels will plan a project, right? There are multiple steps for the project to be finalized. One is environmental impact assessment. That means somebody, an expert, geologist, environmentalist, ornithologist, like lot of people from lot of fields will come to that particular area. They will study, if I construct a dam here, will it lead to loss of life? Will it lead to loss of ecology? Will it have long-term consequences? All these foolproof mechanisms, environmental impact assessment, other assessments are there, right? But the problem is we are bypassing them. We are bypassing them for quick development. So the problem is rapid development. So you are standing here, there is a long way, which is safe. Instant results. Instant results. So what majority of governments are doing is taking this shortcut route of instant development rather than going for safe and long-term objectives. So you can construct hydro plants, but you need to make sure that each and everything is as per the norms. Best quality of infrastructure is taken, or everything is best, and alternative support systems are also created. That means land slips are there. When you are removing a particular amount of forest in a hill slope, you have to go for afforestation, reforestation, building bunds, yes, using grass like vetiver, which will strengthen the grass, which will stop the avalanches to happen. So it will take time. So we are taking the short and instant route rather than the long and safe route. It is also costly. So common sense dictates that majority of the people will choose instant route rather than the safe and costly route. So that is when this top to bottom approach should be banned, and people who are at the heart of the project, that means, as I mentioned, steps, right? Local population, experts, everybody have to be taken into consideration for development. That is what we call as sustainable development. Both the project has to be long term, it has to be ecologically friendly, and it should help the local community. What is the point of developing hydropower in the name of renewable energy if you are destroying the forests? Are you able to understand? Think more, analyze more, then it will make more sense. Just don't read for the sake of reading. Clear? These two articles I will discuss definitely tomorrow. I will also share the notes as well.